months. So you said it already, decolonizing technologies in society. That is what I want to talk with you about. So this is based on a paper that was written with a number of people, and it's published this month or maybe next month in a book. Um, so what is digital coloniality? So this is something that we introduce actually, and we think that it is necessary if we are talking about the future of the digital society, and we are here discussing this all the time, to take also the perspective from the global south, because that perspective is often missing. And the reason that it is missing is because there are not many people involved in the discussion with that perspective. So if we want to make it more inclusive, we must also include more people from the global south. And that was the idea of the paper that we wrote. We wrote it somewhere in March, April. We submitted it for a book. That was a book. The name is Perspectives on Digital Humanism. And it was edited by a group led by the TU Wien, the university in Vienna, the Technical University in Vienna. There was a call for papers, for chapters. And when we noticed that most of the authors were actually people from Europe or the US, we thought that it was necessary also to include a critical, let's say, note from the global south. And then we this group is a group of researchers from various continents, from Latin America, Africa, and Asia and Europe together. And we work already together for a long time. So we put this paper together. So what is actually the point? The point is that, as we have discussed already here, there is a problem with the digital society. It's going in a direction that is, raising concern. And that concern is quite recent, I think, or the concerns are growing with the years. So there was this manifesto, the Vienna Manifesto on Digital Humanism, that was set up in 2019, and it was spearheaded by the TU Wien. But it was signed by, I think now more than 1,000 scientists all over the world, and also politicians and also people from business and policymakers. And people are expressing their concern about the future of the digital society. And it was actually, it was started maybe by Tim Berners-Lee with the 20th anniversary of the World Wide Web in 2019, in March 2019, when he wrote in his blog that the system is failing, that the World Wide Web that he invented, or actually is said to have invented it, that he wanted to be open and inclusive, and an open space, a common, is now becoming a kind of place for silos. The name that he uses for big tech, that it's coming more and more privatized, commercialized, and that it's not, let's say, serving humanity as he would have liked. So that is a very important concern. But we think that in this concern, there was a blind spot, and the blind spot is the global south, actually. When we look at the problems of the digital society from the perspective of the global south, and we take a decolonial lens to look at the digital society, we see that the problems are even worse, they're more serious. So if we look at the digital society as it is at this moment, it is concentrating more and more in the global north. It's the knowledge, it's the money, it's the technology, it's the infrastructure, it's the technology itself, it's the pace of innovation, and the global south is actually consuming digital technology, but not involved in the co-production, and less involved also in its revenues. And yeah, it's becoming the customer of the digital society more than the co-creator of it. And we think that that is not a good evolution of the digital society. And we see commercialization of the web concentrated in the global north, control over the technology in private hands. We see the energy consumption that is growing by digital technologies, and putting a large burden on the economies of the global south. And we see also, and what you can see, the network power. That is the name of a book by David Grewal, in which he describes how networks behave. When networks become very big, they become kind of unevitable. It means you cannot avoid them anymore. For example, if you have English language, for example, everybody speaks English, then you cannot survive anymore without speaking English. So you have to learn, otherwise everybody's speaking with each other and you are excluded. For example, with Facebook, if all your friends are on Facebook, you are kind of compelled to make an account, because all your friends are posting and are looking at nice stories from each other, and you're excluded. So these networks tend to have a kind of power of to force people to become part of it, even if it's not your own choice. And that's also something with the digital society. As we shape it at this moment, it has such a power that in the global south, for example, countries cannot avoid the internet. It's impossible to create an alternative network for the internet. So we are faced with this problem nowadays. So if we look back, so we have now here at VU, we have started with ICT4D research long ago. I myself started actually looking at the digital divide in 2006 when I joined the Center for International Cooperation here at the VU. I had already worked as an ICT professional for 15 years before in the Netherlands. But then I became aware of the problem in the setting of developing countries, because I was sent to Ghana to do projects there, ICT projects at universities. And the problem at that moment, so around 2005, 2006, was more on connectivity. So the internet connectivity in African countries was very, very poor at that moment, and it was extremely expensive to have internet. So the connectivity was not good, and that was the main concern. So I was working at that time in projects in the university in Ghana, 3 different projects, and the main concern was, how do we connect these people to the internet? Well, that problem has gradually been solved for urban areas. That means that in urban areas in developing countries, the internet connectivity nowadays is not that bad anymore, and prices have gone down. So that seems like a problem solved, although in rural areas the problem remains. But also that problem is gradually improving. So when we started to work in rural areas in Africa, so we started in Mali, Burkina Faso, Ghana, poor rural areas with farmers, local farmers, we noticed that the problems there were more on the content side. So we wanted to facilitate their local innovations, their local commerce, their trade, their local problems by creating digital technologies. But there the problems were with the context that, of course, the internet was poor or missing, but there was also high illiteracy rates. People could not read and write, many languages spoken. So then we started to work on the content. We started to work on voice technologies. We started to work on small hardware to avoid, let's say, the high cost of internet and connectivity. We started to work on speech recognition, text-to-speech systems, all kinds of voice technologies to facilitate communication and information sharing in, for example, local languages. So that was a whole new approach to ICT for development. It was not anymore focused only on, let's say, access to the internet, but it was about creation and co-creation of digital technologies based on a merger of local and global knowledge. You can say local indigenous knowledge by the farmers and the ICT knowledge by the team of ICT4D experts. Then, but gradually time is moving and technology is changing and the digital society is changing. So we're moving now towards a new reality in which we see the risks or the threats of the digital society for the global south. And we're now moving towards the concern of decision making. So if we are creating systems that are so powerful that and that can, for example, capture all the data, personal data from users in the global south, um, through the social media, for example. People are more and more on Facebook and using other social media platforms where their data are captured, and they're consuming ICTs, but they're not part of the whole development of the systems and that are using this data. They become, let's say, powerless in the decision making. And if there is not enough knowledge to join um, the forces, then they become really forceless. So we think that that action is needed. So there's need for a broad, inclusive public debate from different perspectives. So we must discuss this not only with, let's say, highly educated white people in the global north, but also with all people. Researchers from the global south must be included, and also other people, non-academic people from the global south. We must create knowledge and technological skills in the global south, enforce that, increase, let's say, the curricula. For example, in African countries, we're working on together with an African university to improve technological skills and in their curricula. Of course, open source is important. Fair ecosystems is something that Jaap discussed already. Is very important for decentralization. And of course, legislation and policy are important to protect citizens, and good governance is needed. So there are a lot of actions that we must take, but one of the most important, and I will skip most of the points here that we have, but the importance to create a new generation of ICT4D and AI experts that are ready for this global citizenship in the digital society. And I think that is one of the main goals of this, maybe this conference, is how can we set up good education in this area. So we here at VU are already working a little bit in this direction. We have the ICT4D 3.0 action research approach that was developed, and that consists of designing, co-designing technologies for low resource environments. It consists of contextualization, adaptation, and very close collaboration with the local users in African countries. And we do that also with our students. A community-centered approach, and ethics and sustainability by design. How does that work? Well, we do workshops. We do many workshops in Mali, Burkina Faso, Ghana. We do that every year. We're going to do that next month. And we try to involve our students as much as possible in these workshops, if it's possible, presence, and if not, we do it virtually. Nowadays, since the COVID situation, we're already doing this on Zoom. So you see here in this picture some of our workshops in the past few years. We have this community service learning approach that we have developed here for ICT4D. That's learning for societal impact, so it fits very well in the ideas of Aurora. It's problem-based. It's similar to what Sally Wyatt told us they're doing in Maastricht in this. It's action research oriented. It's very co-creative, so you academics and non-academics working together on solution of socio-technical solutions of problems. In that sense, it also refers to what Kees Boersma was telling about disaster management and that bottom-up approach. We have basically the same approach, but not on disasters, but just on real world problems that occur every day. Communities are the ones who set the objectives for the digital technologies. We're not coming with a kind of agenda how to change people, but we just listen to what they want. And until now, we have achieved to get many ideas from local communities in Mali, for example, in Ghana. Context is important, so we want to expose our students as much as possible to different contexts. And it is open-ended research, so we never know when we start where it will end. We cannot say where it will achieve its goal. And we have multiple paths to achieve a goal. Of course, we set some objectives, what we want to achieve, but it's always difficult to know which path will be taken at the end. So we have developed a community service learning model, and that is based on a kind of iterative approach of learning, researching, collaborating, and improving the situation, so in cycles, using and adapting methods. And well, we have a number of examples of this kind of research. And after the break, so I'm now passing already the time for the break. Hans is telling me to wrap up. But after the break, we will have the voice of the students. So 4 students will tell about their research, and 3 of them are have been supervised by me in ICT for the research projects for their master project, and they will tell you more about what they are doing in this program. So that's it for now. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Anna. And then there is time for questions, even from your own students. Yeah, then.
Thank you, Anna, for your wonderful presentation, and it's a really highly important issue you are working on. You mentioned the problem of first the technological colonialization of the South, but as well, I would like to ask you what you do, how you try to avoid to have a colonial gesture in the projects you do.
Thank you, Petra. That is a very good question, and that's very difficult, of course, because there are always hidden aspects that you don't know, and you're blind. You're blind to these things. I think that in international development cooperation has a very colonial approach normally, and we try to make that visible, and we try as much as possible to discuss that and to show that and to discuss that also with our partners. And that's the way to avoid. I think that the debate about it, the openness about it, is the most important part. So involving as many perspectives as possible, and in the decision making is what matters. So it's all about decision making and all about domination or collaboration, intervention or collaboration. And we try to avoid it as much as possible. Of course, it is difficult because there is a difference in technological knowledge. There's a difference in how we live, how much we earn. So there are things that we cannot avoid. When you talk with African farmers, there is a difference. But we try to be as open and as humble as possible, and to collaborate in these projects and to avoid what we think is colonial. And that's,
thank you.
That's how it should work.
Other questions? So, to conclude, isn't there a very clear parallel of your approach against the, let's say, traditional approach with what Kees Boersma was explaining in terms of you have this command and control from the top kind of idea versus you mobilize society, citizens, they are not passive subjects, but they make decisions.
That's totally true. I always like to hear the talk of Kees because I heard it already several times, and I'm really, I think it's a wonderful approach, and I see many parallels. So I think that's what is behind it is the same idea of respecting local agency and not intervening in a very top-down manner. That's the whole point of both approaches.
Okay, thank you very much. We have a break of 10 minutes and we reconvene at 11:40. See you later on.